Good morning, Sean here. Today I'm going to share a brief workshop to demonstrate some of the practical methods we use here to maintain our backyard bananas. So I'll try and cover some more alternative methods for propping and a lot of other things, because tight spaces with backyard growing can be an issue and you can't always use standard methods. So the things you'll see here is what's worked for us over time. So if you're here, hopefully you find something useful you can apply with your bananas at home. So first up is chop and drop. Not only do we remove leaves that are brown or block access, we also choose to remove some outer layers of leaf from the trunk. This is for ornamental purposes, and if you're only removing a few outer layers every so often, I personally find it beneficial to the overall health of the plant. The method is, as you can see here, it's split it down the middle and then twist it one side and then around to the other, which is usually anti-clockwise and then clockwise. So find your outer leaf, then split and then twist. It's like peeling a banana. This is a dwarf Namwa variety of banana. In Australia it's known as a dwarf de case. So this variety is quite solid and strong, and you can peel back these outer layers quite easily. So when you don't go all the way to the bottom, just take a bit off the top. But when you are doing this with Cavendish, don't take too many layers off, because you will affect the structural integrity of the plant. But with ladyfingers and decase, you can strip them pretty hard. Bagging, there'll be a few examples of this throughout this video. So here's one method, which is convenient for these dwarf varieties, but once your plants start getting a bit bigger, it can become more of a challenge. So when you're doing this chop and drop, just be careful there's no irrigation underneath the ground. You can also use plants like this Queensland arrowroot to feed your plants. And I always leave a space about 1 metre away from the fence is ideal. I call that perimeter landscaping. I never plant the plants right up to the fence. And there's all sorts of mulch. That's banner grass, which is a type of Napier grass. And then once it all gets a bit messy, I've got a bit of bamboo always on hand. And that just means I can cover it and make it look good. So not only am I adding the carbon component of mulch, it's also for aesthetic as well. And that there is the secret to effortlessly growing big bunches of bananas, because if you're in a suburban area, your neighbours are mowing their lawns anyway, and so long as they're chemical-free lawns, you can grab those bins full of grass clippings and dump them around your plants. This is a good example of the planting material. So you can either get old bits of trunk, grow it from suckers, get enough corm, and that's the most common method that backyard growers seem to use. From nurseries, unfortunately your plants come really weak and skinny as tissue culture like this, because they recommend that it's better because of pest and disease and whatever else. But personally I like to grow from I-corms. That's one that's just about to form into a stuck sucker. I'll get ones even smaller than that, and I'll cut chunks and get multiple, up to 10 I-corms out of a single stump. Now this is the pseudostem, but let's call it the trunk for this video so everybody knows what we're talking about. And that trunk will break down in 6 months and look like this. So it's good to feed all your other plants, not just as chop and drop, and feed your soil for your other plants. So through here, this is more for other crops, not bananas, but there's still some old plants hanging in there, like this little ladyfinger. I was going to get rid of it, but maybe I'll grow one more bunch of fruit. This was actually a whole clump of bananas, and it's been thin dried out back to just this one sucker. So these ladyfingers look great when you strip the outside layers, and they really seem to respond well. They seem to love that outside layer ripped off and dropped back as mulch. So watering is the other important thing other than mulch, which leads to this prime example of what not to do. So first of all, that's an alternative prop method because this is a blue Java variety banana, which is commonly known for just blowing over and being really weak in the wind. A bit of a novelty banana, not my favourite tasting banana either. Good in syntropic systems, but anyway, this small bunch of fruit is because of this nitrogen fixing pinto peanut grass and these pineapples. So it's got plenty of water. The soil was good. There was some really big bunches came out of this area, but this pinto peanut grass, because it's I like the way it looks, and there's no weeding. I've got no room to add all my lawn clippings and mulch without making it all look like a mess. So I've chosen the pineapples over the bananas. And the nitrogen fixing plant is not like some miracle thing that's going to grow your bananas effortlessly. It's much better to have an area you can dump a whole heap of mulch if you're serious about just growing high volumes of fruit. This is a standard method of props. Again, that bunch of fruit's not so big either. That's a standard Cavendish bunch. It's actually a New Guinea Cavendish bunch, which is a slight variation on the common ones. And so through here, this area's gotten a bit too crowded. So the easiest method is, rather than trying to identify water suckers, and just locate your structures that you want to avoid. So if you've got other plants or walls or trees, simply choose your lead sucker that's growing in the direction. See, this one is the healthiest of the lot, but it's going in the wrong direction. So I'm going to choose the littler one that I want it to start growing in the opposite direction. So now that they've been identified, the ones that are going to remain, you just chop and drop all the rest of the plants. And that's lime. It's just used to identify the plants I'm going to keep. Straight raw chicken manure is what's in that bucket. If you do use that kind of thing and you've got neighbours, you're going to always need your mulch and a lot of other things ready to mask the smell. These are good for masking the smell. If you dig them in deep enough so the pests don't get in. That's just the food scraps, and then I chuck bamboo leaf in with it so that it breaks down a little bit quicker. I don't take it too seriously, just bamboo leaves and then food scraps and lid on. It's quite simple. And then this leaf's blocking access, so there's chop and drop happening there. And this is a swale system that's also the footpath, so there's a water harvesting system going on. I'll talk a bit more about this type of post in a minute. So that's just another alternative way you can prop up your plants, because access can sometimes become awkward. Okay, while we're in this section, let's talk about competition, because a high volume of plants and trees like this eucalypt here doesn't necessarily mean small fruit. If we flash back to this bunch of Cavendish, which is in the exact same area, but grown in a time when we could mulch the space a lot more easily. If we look at it now, that's the same area, and that's where that bunch was grown a little earlier in the succession. We got white sapotes and all sorts of other fruit trees here, not just bananas. In fact, here's what the same space looked like about 2 years ago, at a time when there was more sunlight and we were growing other things. I'll wrap this up as the first video because I'm not sure how long the videos are that I can upload to Facebook. And this walkthrough continues, and I'll upload the rest of that a little bit later. So stay tuned.